Welcome back to the Watercolour Westport Stories podcast. So glad that you're here. My name is Kevin Rankin. I'm part of the Land-Arc team here. And today we have the pleasure of somebody who's become a very important advisor to the team, and I would say a friend that has been a big part of our journey, Gord Cooke from Building Knowledge Canada. So Gord, welcome. So glad you're here.
Thank you, and definitely a friend. I always enjoy coming up here. It's a great journey, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Well, you use the word journey. It has been a journey, and we're very glad that we've been doing it with you. And I think back upon the start of this journey to create this unique community level place that where better living is possible, better buildings, better land planning, and you've been a very key part of that. So I'd love to sort of pull that apart a little bit. What's been interesting is that for us, we needed to have both the high level objectives and understanding, but also the deeper pieces. And so perhaps you can just share a little bit about how you've helped people like ourselves but particularly Land-Arc, how you've helped us to get the right pieces to be able to build this community level net zero ready place that allows people to fully live into better stewardship of the land and of their lives and of their relationships.
And I like the way you said that. There are indeed kind of two levels to this. There's that whole land development concept that we're typically not part of. More and more we are with builders, but it's once you've kind of made that commitment at that upper level, then say, how do I execute at the box level, right at this individual house level? And that's been my career, sort of starting in the middle of the box, working my way out to the outside of the box, and then helping builders go, okay, it's okay, you can do this. Your concept, the overall development, we can make this happen on a per house level. And that's what I've been really pleased to help with. As you say, it's not an easy business. I'm always in awe of builders. It would be so easy just to get to the land development side, get the concept, sell some houses, and just go ahead and build without thinking about the long term, as you said, livability, sustainability of the community at the house level. I really applaud that. I'm in awe of it, frankly, and pleased to be a part of it, knowing that it's such a complex thing.
Well, you can make very complex ideas simple for people like me and for members of our team so that we can actually turn it into a realizable vision. And I'd love for you just to share a little bit just about how, through your journey, it has come to a point where a community like this can be built, and why now is such a good time to be doing, let's call it the right thing, but doing the right thing as a home builder, thinking about, like you say, the sustainability, the livability, the experiences that people long for, right? In living, they're not looking for extra challenges, in their living circumstances. If anything, they're looking for simpler, better, cleaner, healthier, better for the environment, and those sorts of things. So a little bit of, again, you have the ability to work at a very, very, deep technical level is what's behind it. And you've also been shooting for this long-term goal, or helping builders shoot for this goal. So yeah, why now? Why are all these things coming together so that when we look at a place like Watercolour Westport, everything has sort of come together that we can do this at an entire community level today?
It is interesting, right? Housing in itself is a long-term game. When you think about, here in Westport, there's probably houses 150 years old. So it doesn't surprise me that it takes a while for new things to come through. That said, I'm buoyed by the fact that we're near the culmination of 50 years of Canadian building science research. Started in the 70s, quite frankly. That is, we always had good building codes for health and safe and durable structures, fire-resistant structures, but we didn't really start on the energy and performance side till the mid-70s because of oil embargoes and energy insecurity. And so why didn't it take off? So the research had to get done, and then manufacturers had to respond to that research, and then it has to get through the supply chain, and then you have to think about trades and whether they're going to be able to adopt it. And home building is a very regional business. What we do in Ottawa isn't the same as what we do in Toronto. Forget Seattle, Washington, or some other place. Although the boxes may end up looking remarkably similar, in fact, the technology, the strategies, the materials we use tend to vary. So for those reasons, it's a very complicated business. Moreover, people only buy houses every 7, 10, 15, 20 years. So they don't really have a lot of retained knowledge of why did I buy a house last time. So at the consumer level, it's hard to educate as well. So there's lots of reasons as to why it didn't go quicker than it has. But your question was, why now? And I think you and I could agree that things have changed, right? That we do have manufacturers now that we can reliably partner with, leaders in the industry, and you guys have worked with many of them, made some great choices here. So that's helpful. There is now a building science community, so it's not just me and a few others. There's a network of folks, and the trade base, I would say, has gotten better, and so there's more materials, affordability. As I was driving up here, you can find one or two houses that I can recognize. Oh yes, I remember that, or that builder, so on. But I'm always, again, appreciative of the fact that here at Watercolor, you guys have done it at a community scale. And I'm sure you found that, right? That it's easier when you go, we're not doing one, we're going to do a whole community over a long period of time. Even if you just said 25 in the next year, that's not nearly as impactful as saying 100 over the next 5 years. There's a consistency, and I'm sure you found that.
Yeah, very well said. We got on the train, and it was a little bit scary at first, and so we're glad to have trusted guides like yourself on the journey, because as we were starting about it, we wanted to think about making it easy for home, not only for our trades and others, but also making it easier for a homeowner to experience all the benefits of living in one of these better homes. So as we started that, we realized, and probably most people, unless you've built a home, you might not know, there are maybe 1,000 decisions that you would make in putting together a home from the ground up, and thinking about all the little choices that you make. It's not just about a finish here or a finish there, but I think for most buyers, when they think about, can they trust, is this a good choice for me to make coming into it? I think we gain a ton of confidence by having a guy like yourself and some of the other energy advisors that are close by, that have been part of your, this virtual team of people helping us to make the choices, such that a homeowner can focus on those things that may be more aesthetic, but that the actual structure and the foundation and everything, they're going to be thrilled with their living experience in the home, sort of thing. So yeah, thank you. I agree. I think I think what I would, I'd be interested in just hearing your thoughts about what you've experienced, given the why now kind of question. Whereas if you were coaching somebody to do a one-off maybe 15 years ago, as to now, what your role as a trusted guide, how that's evolved, and how that then sort of is to the benefit of somebody who then wants to, buy into a community scale, net zero ready, net zero community. Yeah, how's your role changed, and how's that education process? There's hundreds of people that touch every one of, I just look around the room and I think about all the, everything from the foundation up, the hundreds of people that touch one of these homes, and the sort of those that maybe 1,000 decisions that get made, and the choices that you spec out, everything, not just the color of your cabinets and that sort of thing. So how's your role changed in that, and what's your experience been compared to say 15 years ago when you were trying to coach somebody to build a one-off or a couple of these and try it out and see what consumers' life experience would be? And
to your point, it's just there's a wider community of I think you used the term trusted advisors. You're working with a great energy advisor. Stefan does a wonderful job on a local level. In the past, it was hard to come by. There was, in terms of, let's talk about testing, there was only 3 or 4 of us that owned the equipment to air tightness test houses. You were traveling a long distance. I remember a fellow calling me from Calabogie, not too far north of here, years ago, trying to build a house and couldn't find anybody to do it. I had to drive from Cambridge. I was the closest guy. And then when we did find there was challenges, I recommended a few technologies to him, and I didn't know who to point them to, who's locally. But now, for example, major manufacturers will have reps in different areas. We can call on them as local advisor. And the key is, builders can't do this alone. There's still a lot at it. It's what we call, in fact, Canada coined the phrase, a couple of researchers coined the phrase house as a system. Every time you change one thing, it impacts something else. As a little example, we talk about putting an extra inch of insulation to the outside of a building. That sounds easy, it's just an extra inch. Well, wait a minute, my house just got 2 inches wider. What impact does that have? And I got to attach my cladding through that, my siding through that inch of insulation. And my foundation wall has to get thicker. And as you mentioned, that means there are dozens of people that are involved in what seems like a very simple thing to do. And it turns out it takes builders about 3 years to get used to doing it. So if you're only doing one house, why bother? But when you've made a commitment, like you guys have, to say to the framers and the trades guys, we're going to be doing this many times, then they get on board. 15 years ago, it was difficult. I had a builder who wanted to do this kind of technology, couldn't get a framer, they're busy, don't want to do it. So he had to do it himself, which it puts huge stress on that process. So just the availability is really powerful.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great way to think about it. And we have, we've been beneficiaries of some of the people that have, like yourself, that have helped build these networks and the knowledge bases and, educated the manufacturers. I think when I think about some of the people that come to visit us and are, they're obviously wowed by the beauty of these homes. I shouldn't say obviously, but perhaps you can catch a little bit of that. The beauty is not just skin deep here. Like it's very, very deep. And yeah, when I think about some of the things that people are seeking in terms of quieter and calm, and I think about things like maybe a little bit of climate resiliency, and I think about even something as simple as air quality, because in this part of North America, it seems, on a fairly regular basis, maybe once a season, we're experiencing wildfire smoke in maybe the northeastern part of the continent, right? So when I think about some of those things, I don't think most people would fully appreciate that their choice of a home, and you say, why now? Why would I choose this? Some of those things are quite relevant, again, sort of the calm and the quiet and the energy resiliency and just even air quality and things like that. And maybe you could it's all pretty relevant in when I'm looking for better living.
Exactly. I love the way you said that. 15 years ago, people, why would I do that? I don't have to do that, a builder might say. Now I'd say we're completely flip. Why wouldn't I? Of course I want this. And I think it comes to a large extent that, hopefully it doesn't sound goofy, but people have gotten pickier. And our expectations of houses, like I'm old enough to remember fall came around, you knew the Eaton's truck was coming with flannel shirts and corduroy pants and slippers. You just knew that it was going to be cold. For heaven's sakes, put some clothes on. And now we would say, really, in a brand new house, I have to wear slippers? I can't go down, I want to live in the basement. Back in the day, you had to wear oven mitts and a toque to go in a basement, for heaven's sakes. You couldn't watch TV down there. So now, I would say, why not? You're building a brand new house. If you knew, when you know, that the technology is available, the manufacturer's in place, the research has been done, why wouldn't we do this? And it does, really important, I've said it maybe way too many times, what was really impactful is the same things that we did for energy efficiency. Because of that house as a system concept that Canada kind of pioneered, because of that, we realized that the same things you do for energy efficiency also make houses healthier, safer, more comfortable, more durable, which means quieter, so on. So you would say, why wouldn't I do this? And I think homeowners need to be at that point. They need to hear education sessions like this and say, so if I'm buying a new house, and maybe I should, why wouldn't I do this if the technology is available? Why would I let anybody talk me out of this? Because it's all doable, and quite frankly, it's affordable. People often, we kind of saddled ourselves with, it's under the specter of energy efficiency, and that kind of hurt us a little bit, because the minute you say energy efficiency, people are looking for the quality and return on investment of that energy. I would say, no, you've got it wrong. Build yourself a great house. Get all the great things that you want. And by the way, it's energy efficient enough that the incremental cost is more than paid for by the energy savings. You get a better house for the same dollars. And this was the premise of the Energy Star program in the US, the CHBA's Net Zero program here. I think we really need to turn the conversation is, why wouldn't I do this? It just makes total sense. And that's, to a large extent, the why now. It's this confluence of consumer expectations of better living, better houses. I deserve it, rightfully so. The environment needs it now. It would be a shame to build a house today knowing it's obsolete in 10 years' time, right? We need this. We can't wait. We need this for Canada, for the global environment. And yes, we got to fix existing houses, but it'd be a shame to build a house that didn't have this. So that confluence of homeowner expectations, the climate need, if you will, and then the availability, as we talked about. Our trades know it. You guys have made that commitment. We can do this. We can train. We can educate folks, and we can empower or enlist the local trade base and manufacturers to make this doable. Although I know it's not easy, you guys have done a really nice job of embracing that. And as you know, there's others out there that are doing it in pockets, and it's really important to the industry to see you guys be successful with this.
Well, thank you. Yeah, well, truth be told, I didn't have hair before I started this particular role, but when I see you still have your hair, which is great. You haven't pulled it all out, trying to get to builders like ourselves moving forward. But one of the things that I think I would have wrongly understood, perhaps about choosing a better building envelope. You talked about the house as a system. My wife and I, Sandy, we have a house around the corner from us that was built as a passive house, and they have these tiny little windows, 2 or 3 on the whole side of the house, sort of thing. And I think maybe you could just chat about how things have evolved, and you can have beauty. We talk about, we want to create a place for connection, right? Connection to neighbor and nature. And so you can have your cake and eat it too with the technology that's available today. So you can, maybe you can share just about the fact we have these beautiful large windows that allow people to take in the beauty of the trees and the outdoors, and to be able to to have these beautiful outdoor living spaces that are connected and don't take away from the energy efficiency of the home. So these things are perhaps a little bit more recent in terms of being accessible and affordable and proven and that sort of thing. So beauty and architecture and connection, you don't have to give that up when you choose a better home.
No compromise, absolutely. In fact, I'd go further. Some would say, if it's not beautiful, people won't look after it, won't be sustainable, right? We can't build ugly houses. And what are people's, I joke all the time, are we going back to fewer windows anytime soon? Everybody wants more natural light. And so the technology has leaped forward. We're on, in my lifespan, at least 3 different changes in technologies or improvements in technologies, from the coatings that go on the glass that help us harvest the sun appropriately in the climate zones. For example, different coatings on glass for Phoenix than for Westport as for Edmonton. That in fact we now have technologies that understand that we want that gain in the winter, that solar gain in the winter. We don't want it in the summer, at least not too much of it. But where you are impacts those choices. And the leading glazing manufacturers have 6 or 7 different coatings that are appropriate. It's called spectrally selective glass, that we can make those choices, which makes windows, as you say, now I can have more of them. I can think about what side they're going to go on. Then beyond that, instead of 2 panes of glass, 3 panes of glass, which means I have 2 air spaces, which improves the overall thermal and sound performance of that glass. And to your point, you used to be the odd window manufacturer. And if you ask those window manufacturers, how much for triple glazed windows? Oh, 30 to 40% more. Okay, that sounds like a big number. It's not actually a big number when you look at the incremental cost. But now now you have many more manufacturers and different styles of windows. It used to be you couldn't get triple glazed, say, in a double hung window. Now you can. for example. So the manufacturers have stepped up and said, hey, if this is coming, again, they need to hear that reinforcement from builders. Are you really going to do this? Because I don't want to create a SKU if nobody's going to buy it. So it's always a yin and yang to that, right? Of cart before the horse, that I need to have both sides, need to make that commitment. That's why people who step up, really important that we get there. But as I say, leading manufacturers now doing this across North America, and windows is just one. Talked about insulated sheathing, we talked about ventilation systems, all of these things, that there's this trust, you call it trusted advisor, but I'll say trusted partnerships, that we're going to do this together, and we're being respectful. I'm always admire manufacturers who are respectful of the science, right? Who understand how their product interacts. As much as we can say, for example, the low E coatings on the windows that help manage that solar gain, that only works if the HVAC contractor, the heating contractor, cooling contractor understands what that's going to do to the air conditioning loads. So everybody has to kind of, you're going to do that, you're going to do that, okay, now the two can work together. House as a system means these trusted partnerships throughout the build. So that's a big part of why now, where we have this community of folks that will do it from many different disciplines.
You know, we started this journey 4.5 years ago, I guess, is when Stephen said, I think we're going to do that. We need to do this at a community scale. It's the right thing to do. The time is right. Let's go figure this out now. And we started this journey with you. And it's interesting to me to see, again, that the maturity of the deep science, the maturity of the supply chain, and how that all comes together into something that both beautiful to live in, it's highly functional, and can address so many of the things that people can necessarily experience. We were just chatting about even just the climate resiliency in terms of I think we're all seeing an increased number of power outs because of these, because of the storms and things like that are going through, and the wildfire smoke. And I don't know, maybe you can just talk about the house as a system and how that actually brings some resiliency, because we have lots of people, when they are thinking about buying a new home, those things are on their mind. They're thinking about, well, I've experienced these outages, or I've experienced having to replace my windows after 20 years, or there's a number of parts of this whole equation that that people have. People come to us and they're asking questions about. So I don't know if you can chat a little bit about. Again, this is sort of in the sustainability area, but also just in terms of the experience of when you have a house as a system, you're better positioned to be able to, live comfortably in an environment which might be more volatile than it used to be.
I'll give you an example. Good friends of ours retired, wanting to travel more, really concerned because their house in Toronto, frankly, doesn't do well in power outages. So they worry when they go away. And they have Mildred, the next door neighbor, check on the house for them. And Mildred's getting older. That's probably not fair. And literally within hours of a power outage, they have to worry about pipes freezing. They have to worry about challenges within their house, how it's going to work. Whereas I can say you live in a net zero ready house, we were without power for 26 hours and the temperature dropped maybe 2 degrees Celsius over 26 hours on a really cold, really windy day. So there's a simple aspect of resiliency, a house that is able to sustain itself without immediate measures and generators and backups and so on. That's one measure of resiliency. And then remind ourselves of, the same things that we do to make a building airtight from an air leakage perspective, which keeps out dust and pollen and energy. Also, many of those same things help keep out water, so better water management. So in severe rainstorms, we don't see the same leakage. And water destroys buildings, so if we can manage water. So the building in our world, when we teach building science is about 3 things: the flow of heat, the flow of air, the flow of moisture. They all are really important to the durability, sustainability, health, comfort, and resiliency of a building. So if that term building science, that was not a term when I first graduated. I didn't learn any of this at university. Well, now every major university has a building science course. If they have an engineering course or an architecture course, they have a building science stream, if you will. So that too is nice, that at any given day I happen to be involved with a little program at University of Toronto encouraging women in engineering to go into the building industry. And I meet these young women each year. It's like, oh, this is going to be great as these folks graduate, to have yet another base of people that we can help and support this. But it all starts with, at a community scale, do 1, do 10, do 100, right? And we've done the ones. And there's lots who've done 10. And now I'll say again, it would be a shame if a builder, I know it's complex and I know it's difficult to get that land developed and get it going, but I would just say, if you've come this far, just go a little bit further. If I can borrow that line from one of my favorite movies, would you be willing to go a little bit further and use the experience of Landoric in how I put this all together? Because it would be a shame, I'll say again, to build a house today and not do this when we're so, it's so doable at this point. I think it's so powerful.
Certainly easier to do it in a new house than renovating an old house too. I think, and not to discourage anybody from doing smart renovations, but certainly we can build that house as a system from the ground up right now. And one of the things that you've mentioned, that sort of going from 1 to 25, we'll have built our 100th in the next 12 months, which is very exciting. And that means we're just introducing more wonderful families into this community that is connected to nature and neighbor, and living in these in these wonderful homes. I think when I think about the role that you've played with us and trusted guides, we're trying to be trusted guides to those people who God brings to us, who are looking for better living, and so we, part of what I love being able to work with you and others from Building Knowledge is helping us to learn to communicate. Just as you talked about, like, you do all these things, and guess what? Yes, it's better, but also it's more comfortable, it's quieter, all these sorts of things. So I'd love to, just hear, because you have helped us with doing some, educational events for the broader public, or for people who actually even live in these homes, and they're experiencing it, but they don't necessarily even have simple words to explain what they're feeling and what the benefits that they're having. So yeah, I'd love to just hear you. You cover that full range. That's one of the things that we love about you, Gord. Is you cover the full range, from the technical to the ability to communicate it to people who are interested in saying, well, okay, if now's the right time, and this is done at a community scale, and this is a builder that's gone through these things, how would you communicate that to somebody who is who's thinking about, here from a technology standpoint, I should have lots of trust in this, sounds really good, but how would you communicate some of the things that a buyer might be most interested in?
This is the challenge, right? And what we could say, certainly here in Ontario, we have a wonderful building code. People can feel very confident in new houses. They're healthier, safer, all those great things, electrically, plumbing. So it's a great building code. So you're never in danger, you're never in risk when you buy a new house. That said, it's a very challenging thing because of that, and partly because it's such an emotional decision. It's a big decision. Let's be really clear. None of us are qualified to really investigate and buy a new house. You are indeed working on trust, right? How do I know I can trust the builder to do what they're going to do? I love the building industry. I've met over the years only 1 or 2 builders that I wouldn't sit down and have a wonderful meal with. It's a great industry, all trying hard. That said, it's a complex industry, as I mentioned. Lots of little things that can go wrong. So I get asked all the time, how do I know? Frankly, one of the first questions I would ask is, how many days did your trade contractor spend in class this year? That is, I've been doing it for 20 years. Well, then time to change, because what we were doing 20 years ago is no longer good enough. So I'm really pleased with the commitment that Landoric has made to send your guys to training. I see your folks in our classrooms, or not really classrooms, but our training sessions all the time. And so I think that's powerful for homeowners. If they're looking for a good builder, they have to find a builder they can trust. Who can you trust on this complex technical side? Somebody's been to some classes, because this is not stuff. I learned it the hard way. I learned it on site. Then frankly, you probably didn't learn the science. You need to know. And it's still practical learning. So one, let's make sure you're dealing with an educated builder. How would you know that? Builders that label their houses to certification programs like Net Zero, Passive House, LEED, Energy Star. Those are all builders who've taken very specific training. All of those programs are very invested in good building science. So good training programs is one thing I would say to homeowners if they're interested to think about that. Now they can have some trust as they make this amazing emotional decision. The right bedrooms, the right community, the right colors, the right cabinets. Well, it's going to be wonderful at Christmas. I get all of that. And then they have to step back just for a second and think about the logical side. Okay, what is this really going to mean? Is this the same old house that I'm used to now where I can't use the basement because it's cold and damp? Don't want to store my things down there. Can't use that room over the garage very well because it's cold in the winter, hot in the summer. So give some thought to what is the technology. And the easy way, the easy button, is to look for certification programs that applaud or give recognition to builders who have ascribed to. And there will be builders who will say, oh, I built just like that. And then I would say, then why aren't you building to it? Why aren't you qualifying your houses? Because that extra level of quality assurance, the testing, folks need to know, all of those programs have an extra level of quality assurance. In addition to the municipal inspections that are done for minimum building code, there's an extra 3 or 4 levels of energy modeling, testing, performance testing, validation. So those are the kinds of things I would look for. Individual elements, there was a woman here today talking about triple glazed windows. Another homeowner was talking about this basement. They do recognize, they start to see the differences, but that's a longer conversation. And I would just encourage people to educate themselves, but at least look for signs, things that you can trust, and labeling programs are very useful from that perspective.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree. I mean, who knew, all right? I didn't. I lived in a house, but to see, the multiple levels of testing and assurance that go into delivering one of these homes is quite humbling, actually, when you realize that there's these checks all the way through, right from the beginning of the modeling and the design work, all the way through the various stages of construction, to make sure that you're meeting these high standards. That's a powerful thing to integrate into doing it. And even down to something you and I've talked about and you helped educate me on, is just even the commissioning of your heating and cooling system, which frankly the industry is so far behind on, and yet we have the ability to confirm, test 100% of the homes that the heating and cooling that's supposed to be going to that room is going to that room before the home is ever given to a customer. So there's, to your point, there's a lot of extra things that may be hidden to most buyers, but they can be assured by the fact that we have all these test results that our heating and cooling installers, they have automated testing mechanisms to confirm that it meets the design that the engineer initially planned, so that there's right amount of fresh air, there's right amount of heat and cooling.
Exactly. As an example, you think about a ubiquitous 2-ton air conditioner. It's made in one of 4 factories in southern Texas. Maybe it's made over in Asia somewhere, but it's one of 4 factories, and it's going to be used in houses from the tip of Florida to the top of Edmonton. And what are the chances that the conditions, hot and humid and so on in Florida, are similar to the requirements, say, in Edmonton or here in Westport? Turns out the performance of your air conditioner is not just about the box. It's about a system of ductwork and airflow and pressures. All of that goes into making sure your air conditioner works correctly. And I don't mean to fault HVAC contractors because it's a busy business, but in a re situation when they're simply replacing an air conditioner in an existing house, that's pretty straightforward because that's what those air conditioners were designed for. They're designed for the 150 million existing houses. New houses are different because of those different windows, because of the different insulation levels. They work slightly differently, and they need to be set up ever so slightly differently. Different airflow out of the furnace, for example, out of the air handler. And those are the little nuances that take maybe 20 minutes, but unless you are asked to do that by a program such as CHB's Net Zero, you might say, well, it's probably going to be good enough. If they have a problem, they'll call me. Fair enough. But wouldn't you rather have that done? I'll go right back to why wouldn't you do it? If it's possible to do before you move in, why wouldn't we have that testing done and verified? Say, check. Now, does the equipment still meet your needs? Maybe you need a little adjustment here or there. That's maybe up to a homeowner. But to know that I like the word commissioned the house before you moved in. I think in today's world, people would say, I guess I would expect that if I'm buying a new house. It's a different level, and why wouldn't I have that system verified before I move in? Because there's so many things going on that are interrelated. So that's, as you will know, I feel that's an important part of high performance housing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think, Gord, we've had a great discussion, and I think there's so much more that are involved in these houses that for those people who want to take advantage of things like powering their house from the sun and having resilient backups, lots of things that are a lot more things that we can talk about that are actually already prepared for a homeowner to step right into. Everything is basically set up so that somebody can come in and take their, let's call it, they may have a real call to the stewardship of the environment. They want to, not only live in a very efficient, comfortable home, but they want to be able to take advantage of solar. They want to be able to take advantage of battery generation for backups and that sort of thing. So, I think you've done a wonderful job of helping us think about the house as a system, having it ready for the full benefit of people who move in and can take advantage of that in the future. So much more that people can do, and choose to do as they move into these homes.
And I think it is important to highlight, I've mentioned a couple of times, this is not new. This is the culmination of 50 years of true building science research done right in Canada. 50 years. Manufacturers who've come along with that, the DuPonts, the Owens Cornings of the world, the Mitsubishis, the Brown, Vanny Venmar folks. These are all folks that you guys partner with that have just done a phenomenal job of taking that research and applying it. So one of the concerns, people might say, well, I've never heard of this before. That must mean it's new. Might be new in their mind because the last time they looked at this was 15 or 20 years ago. Not new in our minds, right? This is stuff that I've been literally teaching or working with every day for the last 35 years and going, we're ready. It's okay. We can do this. And I'll go again. Builders would say to me, why? Why would I do this? I don't have to do it. And now, to my mind, a builder would have to ask himself, why wouldn't I do it? It's mature, technology's there, my trades know it, the science is proven. People, is this proven? Yes. Hundreds of houses have been monitored for decades to show that this is in fact working better. There's literally tens of thousands of houses that have been built to these kinds of systems. One-offs, but are working really, really well. You only need to take, for example, the dramatic ice storms in this region not too long ago. Which houses did the best? Those were the R2000 houses. Those were the houses that were built under the research programs of the 80s and 90s that are still standing, doing a wonderful job. They didn't get as cold as quickly. They didn't need as much backup power. They weathered the storm, if you will, because of the science of air, heat, and moisture flow that was employed in those buildings. So nothing to be afraid of. And I would say, why wouldn't I do this?
Why wouldn't you? Gord, fantastic to chat with you. Always learn something every time we talk, and I hope that our listeners have had a chance to absorb some of your passion for this community scale development here at Watercolour Westport. And Gord, please come and see us again soon. We look forward to continuing to work with you and your team as we build this out. So thank you very much to listeners and subscribers. We hope that you can take advantage of sharing this with your friends on social. These are available on both YouTube and all your favorite podcasts. So please share it with your friends and acquaintances that might be considering why not now. So from the Watercolour Westport Stories podcast, we wish you a great day and thank you for your time.